Hey guys, welcome to another 5-minute Kung Fu tip. So, I want to talk to you about the idea of the center line. The center line, now, we can get into all sorts of theory, but let's keep it simple, let's keep it beginner. Center line is like a pole running through your body, crown to coccyx. And it's kind of the foundational line of, Chinese medicine. It's the foundational line of dim mak and pressure point and vital organ striking and whatnot. But you know what? It's also just common sense, good targeting. Right along the center line, within a few inches of the center line, you've got major organs. I mean, your brain is in the center, your eyes are within the center, your nose, your mouth, your throat, all center. You've got your sternum, your solar plexus, your diaphragm, your heart, your liver is just a little bit off, your stomach's just a little bit off. You get into the guts down here, you get into the groin. I mean, you can give people hernias down here. On the back side, you've got the spine, you've got the kidneys just on either side. The center line is an important place to be working from. And while the other aspects of center line can move around and are malleable, this single point stays. It is a static point. It is pretty much until humans evolve a different body. This is how we work. We want our center line facing the opponent. We want our opponent's center line not facing us, because we are forward mobile creatures, because our hips, our knees, our toes, our shoulders move forward, because our arms work best out in front of us. The center line principle is very, very important. So what I want to do is to illustrate to you how to move around an object. Now, the striking post is great. This will actually work slightly better than a heavy bag, unless you have one of those wave mounted stand mounted heavy bags, the Wave Master or whatever. But the post is nice because it's smaller. It really is closer to like the size of somebody's skull, and and spinal column with some of the muscles around it and whatnot. So the idea, let me go over to the pole. The idea is that when I'm moving around it, if I take a step, I don't want to step here where my center line is not going off into my opponent, where it's just going off into space. I'm going to have a much harder time exercising power against my opponent if my center line is going off into space. So what I want to do is I want to be able to make sure that as I move, my center line stays on the target. Now, in simple terms, you might think of this like circling, like in boxing. We often call it facing in Wing Chun class, because you always want to stay facing your opponent. The idea, though, is that if I move in tangent to that circle out here, I start pulling all my power from the core into the distal regions, and that makes it much more difficult to exercise power. It can be done. There are always exceptions to the rule. Understand this. But the primary point is that at the end of the day, you want your center line on target. So that's really the idea of it. I mean, it's not that hard. It's just make sure your center line is staying on the target. Let me give you a physical example of perhaps striking in such a way that will illustrate what I'm talking about. If I'm doing, say, a typical punch, block, and counter, if I come across to the side and swat away the hand with a pak sao, an inward block, whatever, if my center line's facing over here, I'm relying on my shoulder to do damage. Can I? Yes. Should I? Circumstance dictates. But structurally, anatomically, is that the way to do it? No, and it's not really the way to train it. I would much rather see the block, the pak sao, it could even be a slip for all I care. Moving to the outside of the punch, I would much rather see kind of a stepping in, getting my center line right on my opponent, or even, especially if I'm using a slip and going to the outside, I might even throw a strike from the outside hand. That's neither here nor there, but the idea is to keep my center line on my opponent pretty much at all times. Like I said, there are exceptions. Don't worry about that for now. This is just beginner stuff. I will talk to you guys later. Good journey.